Nate, welcome to the Visionary Life podcast. I'm so excited to sit down with you today and to chat about all things biking and community building and how you came to create flow state bikes. And we're actually kind of sitting down to chat one-on-one for the first time. I've never had a conversation to really hear the origin story and to get to know you better. So this will be really fun. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Kelsey. It's really great to be here. I'm a huge fan of the podcast.
Oh, it's amazing. And yeah, we were chatting before pressing record that both of us are big consumers of podcasts and just such a fun way to learn and be inspired and to grow as entrepreneurs while we're doing other things and multitasking. So let's get into it with your story a little bit. So the concept of flow state bikes, it feels very unique and it's something that I've always craved in the different towns I've lived in over the past decade. And I'm definitely sad that I don't live a little closer to where it is. But I'm curious, and I'm sure the listeners are too. How did you come up with this concept for a bike shop mixed with coffee and food and drinks and also community? Can you give us a little bit of the history of what led you to this point where you're like, that's it, I'm opening my own shop and this is going to be what I commit to for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I've been wanting and craving this sort of hub for cyclists for a while wherever I lived. But I guess the shorter answer is that it really came, as cliche as it sounds, it came as a dream. It was November 12th of 2021. I woke up from a dream that I was sort of running this bike cafe, and I told my wife I had the craziest dream last night. I was like running this bike shop. It was a cafe. There was this really great vibe to it. And then our 1 year old at the time started crying, and then the conversation was that was it. But later on in the day, she texted me and said, "Hey, this whole bike shop dream that you had, I kind of want to hear more about it." So that night. And she was like, "Let's open up a nice bottle of wine and let's talk about this a bit more." And so we did, and I sort of poured out this dream idea that sort of seemed to be burning deep inside me. And she was like, "You know what? I think maybe you should look into that. You should start scratching that itch." And I think that was kind of the spark that I needed to really pursue it. At the time, I was working kind of like you, I think, in marketing, and it was a great work environment. Really, kind of in many ways checked a lot of boxes. Great team, but I certainly wasn't feeling the most fulfilled. Um, and so over the course of say 8, 9 months, I started really sort of on the side looking into how this bike shop idea could really happen. And lo and behold, I took all the steps and found the perfect location and quit my job in August of that or September of that year. And then we opened fully exactly a year to the date that I had that dream on November 12th of 22. And here we are. So we're going into our third year.
Well, what a crazy story. I feel like this is almost just like the most serendipitous entrepreneurial story that you have a dream and you wake up and you tell your partner and they're supportive. I know we're going to get into, I'm sure, some of the challenges and the different roadblocks that you would have overcome, but a couple things that I want to double tap on there. I think, there's two options when you have a dream like that and there's something that's on your heart. You can say, "Oh, that's not for me. Just push it aside, push it aside. I already have a job, I have a career. It would be irresponsible to even consider making a change." But then I think there's people like you who are like, maybe I'll explore this. And then as you start to explore it, something that starts as a dream, you then verbalize it to one person. That could be your partner, that could be a friend, that could be like your dog. And then all of a sudden, as it comes out of your mouth, you're like, well, maybe it's not so crazy. And like it really starts to feel real. For you, like when you started to talk to your wife, did it really start to unfold naturally? Did you start kind of dreamstorming together? What happened after that conversation that you did to move the business forward in little ways?
Yeah, I think at first it's you sort of think, well, this is just my own little idea. This is kind of like something that I would really enjoy, but would other people would that really resonate with them? And so hearing the fact that there might be some interest, opening up the conversation with a few friends and seeing that, hey, this is actually maybe not so crazy, gave me a bit of confidence to kind of start pursuing it a bit further. And the fact that, I mean, it's sort of a new concept here, at least in our area, as far as a bike cafe, is to be able to walk in and order coffee or to shop bikes all under one roof. But it really, maybe to give you a bit more back of a backstory, prior to the pandemic, I worked for 8 years for a bike travel company called Sacred Rides, and the gift of that job is that I really, got to spend a good chunk of my 20s exploring the world on my mountain bike. And what I got to see in travels to New Zealand or Switzerland or Peru is that bike shops could really be this community hub that people could gather and hang out and chat with the mechanic and get tips, or just grab a drink, grab a latte, grab a beer, and sit on the patio and have this really great setting for adventures and mountain biking, ideally close to trails. Like that's all; those are all the elements that I kind of saw as a great recipe for more than just a bike shop, but kind of more of a of an experience.
Mhm.
And so that really opened my eyes to the possibility of what a bike shop could be. And it wasn't something that I was seeing locally. I grew up in Toronto, and a lot has changed. But as far as the bike cafe goes, I've since moved. I live in Guelph now, and just wasn't I wasn't seeing that great bike shops. But I would only, even as a passionate cyclist, I would only really go if I needed, parts or service, never to really hang out and meet friends and commune. So that's where that idea came from. And then I kind of had one location in mind. Would look around to a few others, but this one location that we luckily managed to secure was always just sort of checked all the boxes. It's a beautiful sort of country market right next to trails. And when the opportunity came knocking, then I was like, okay, this is confirmation that I need to really dive into this because it
Mhm.
sounds like this could really
Mhm.
work.
So amazing. So before that moment of signing the lease and like really committing to doing this, I am curious to dive in a bit more to how you validated this idea. So I think what's cool about what you shared is like number one, you knew it was something that you would want to be part of and a place that you were seeking but couldn't find. And then you also mentioned that you had conversations with a few friends, kind of saying like, hey, I have this crazy idea. Do you think it would work? Would you come? Was there anything else you did kind of in those first few months to really validate that, yes, this could work from a financial perspective? This could work because hundreds of people are telling me, or I know that it will be a success. Like, what were some of those things you did to reassure yourself, but also the people around you that this could be a viable idea?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly friends and family are great, very supportive in many cases, but and my target market too. Like I had quite a few friends that I go riding with, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's amazing. We should totally do that." Of course, but beyond that, I really want to make sure that it was something that would long term and sustainably make sense. So I started having more serious conversations with friends of mine in the industry, so bike reps or bike shop owners or managers, sort of outside of my own region. One in Newfoundland, one in Quebec, one in Toronto. So yeah, quite a few. Just really getting different perspectives um, and from just really getting the lowdown on the reality of the bike industry. Just remember, this is 2021, 22. We're just kind of still in the midst of the pandemic. Things are kind of crazy. Shortages and demand, just really kind of a wonky time. So, but the demand was huge, and I really kind of saw the opportunity to really delve into the outdoor space and really offer mountain bike more so than just bikes, but experiences, possibly group rides and skill camps. Those are all things that eventually I'd like to get into as well. And the fact that we're so close to trails really lends itself to that idea. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was kind of having more in-depth conversations with people in the industry and getting really insightful conversations, having really those insightful conversations with them, and getting the reality check as to whether or not it made sense. And some of them, I'm grateful, were very honest. Like, hey, it's not a walk in the park. It's super challenging. You've got to deal with this.
Yep.
Um, and then had a couple conversations with bike reps too, who would rep the brands that I kind of want to rep, and saw that there was an opportunity with a few of them that there would be interest in expanding to our market specifically. So
Yep.
that's when I was like, okay, if I can secure these bike brands and bring in this kind of inventory, I think there'd be even though it's pretty niche, that's kind of the area that I wanted to be in, kind of the more mountain gravel. There weren't as many mountain focused shops in the
Yep.
area, so there were more kind of road bike options, which is great, but I wanted to really be, I mean, that's kind of what I tend to do is, especially with the mountain bike trips, would love to go on mountain bike trips, and it's always been my happy sport that I tend to go to during more challenging times. So yeah, mountain biking holds a special place, and that's not to say we may not expand to other areas in cycling, but that's kind of our main focus, at least for now.
hmm hmm So as you're like validating the idea, obviously you're hyped about everything. Are you also writing a formal business plan? Are you going straight into logo design? What are some of the other things that you really vividly remember from that year of kind of bringing the idea to life that were important pieces to actually getting to the point where there's a physical shop that is open to the public? What were some of those things that you spent time or money or energy on that were really worth the while before opening the doors?
Yeah, definitely worked on a very thorough 90-page business plan.
90 pages.
Yeah, it
Good
was.
for you.
I went overboard for sure. But I think the process of going through those questions and really thinking it through was helpful just for my own sake of having gone through the work of really deciding whether or not it was the right fit. Because by this point, I'd been working for someone else for 15 years, Sacred Rides, and then the marketing company and a few other uh, ebbs and flows here and there. But and
hmm
I really started wondering, am I ready to take the leap of entrepreneurship? For like as many of, I'm sure some of your listeners, it's a very daunting idea of going at it on your own. So I want to make sure that I was ready, and the way that I did that was by creating this business plan that I may not reference as much these days, but it really helped me hone in on the why behind why am I doing this.
Yep.
And I think just even thinking of your values, your purpose, your mission, that was all helpful in crafting the narrative that I wanted to portray as to why am I doing this. Well, it's something that is really resonant for me, but I think it's something that a lot of other people can connect with.
Mhm.
Creating more than just a bike shop, but a hub, a community gathering place, was something that was really near and dear to my heart, and I could see that there was a deep need for it too.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Can you think back to the feeling that you had when you had arrived at the day where you were about to share the shop with the public? Like, because just picturing that feeling, and I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and some of them, they're like, I'm so excited and ready. Some of them, it's like the fear of God is in them. Some of them, it's a mix of both of those emotions. What did you feel on that day when you had put so much effort? You poured your heart and soul into this plan, and now it's a reality. What were those feelings that were flowing through you, flow to use your word, on day one of saying, I'm here, and now we start the next chapter of flow state?
Yeah, it was definitely a mix of emotions, uh, excitement, acceleration, really kind of. There was a lot of question marks. One of my favorite sayings is that everything is figure outable.
Yep.
Marie Forleo, thank
Mhm.
you for that one. But I mean, you're a mom. I know that it's probably not so different than birthing a child. I mean, obviously not nearly as painful, but it felt like it felt like kind of you're putting something out there. And obviously it's we're a tiny little shop here in Arkell. It's something small, but it's my whole. It was certainly that first year, it was my whole universe. It was everything that I poured my heart and soul into,
Yep.
and occupied a lot of real estate up in here. So yeah, it was a lot. It was certainly a lot of excitement, and the day of our grand opening, it was just like this huge confirmation. Massive groups of cyclists came from all over and really came to support the shop. So we got a lot of community love and support. So we were off to a great start.
Mhm.
The community that we're in is just I think was really craving
Yeah.
that sort of community place to hang out and celebrate cycling. So
Mhm.
great reception, and it's been certainly a journey since then. Um, but yeah, it was those first few months were everything was new and super fun, and
Yep.
we just figured it out on the go.
Hmm. Well, you mentioned that you had a bunch of groups kind of roll through on grand opening day. And I know that one of the number one questions of startup business owners and people who are finally putting an offer out into the world is like, how am I going to do my marketing? And obviously, you come from a marketing background, but then when you have to do it for your own business, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, like now I have to turn the spotlight back on me and create a plan for this business. Like I don't know. Everything goes out the brain, but what were some of those initial marketing efforts that you feel provided the most return on investment? Like that really helped to spread the word, that got those first few customers and clients through the door. What did you do, knowing that this was a few years ago, so still pretty relevant to today? What do you feel you did that was most effective to get visible, spread awareness, and get the word out there that Flow State was now open for business?
Yeah, we certainly partnered with a few fairly big, I guess, local businesses. So our coffee comes from Lost Aviator. We partnered with Fixed Gear to serve beer. Those were all kind of well established and well loved fixtures here in Guelph. So to have sort of partnered with them and for them to share the fact that there's a new coffee shop or a new bike cafe in town was a big help. But I sort of focused on the stuff that I personally would like to see both on social media and email. Those are kind of the two main avenues that I felt like I had a bit of expertise in, and that I could sort of dive into and really kind of showcase the personality, which is kind of just fun adventure, more so than just bikes, but what can the bike be used as, and that's sort of where the name of the business comes from too. It's like it's so much more than just a physical piece of equipment. It's providing that sense of flow state, and that's
Mhm.
something really powerful. I think that every cyclist, every mountain biker, every gravel rider can really relate with.
Yep.
So it was pretty natural, and just like I just wanted to showcase sort of the day to day and what we're up to through social media, but it never really felt. I didn't want it to feel super tasky, and I certainly didn't get into um, I didn't want to exhaust myself with everything. I mean, it's easy to do, as you know, with marketing. There's so many creating a website, posting blog posts, and sending out newsletters can be overwhelming. So I just kind of focused on the areas that I felt like I could handle and
Yep.
that I thought could resonate the most with our
Mhm.
audience. And it's grown ever since, and it's been really great. But I never see it as um, like something that needs to be constantly um, yeah tended to, because otherwise it just that gets too much, and you sort of lose sight of what your goal is.
Yep.
So I kind of just try to remember to market to this kid who just loves biking and just wants to get out there and needs a little inspiration sometimes, and that's me,
Mhm.
and that's sort of my core customer base.
So true. And such a good reminder to always be thinking about who is your dream client, right? And to never lose sight of the person that you're trying to reach. Sometimes we think like, I got to create more content on Instagram or I need to send a million newsletters out. And it's like, oh wait, but what does that person need to hear? Or do they just need a new trail recommendation? Or they just want to be reminded that, there's never bad weather to ride or whatever it is, but it's keeping that person in mind and not losing sight of the person that you started this business for. So I love that. And I mean, the other thing you said too is that you focus on partnerships. I think so often in the early stages of business, we think we have to do everything alone. And it's like, okay, I need to be doing this. I need to be, but sometimes we need to look outside of that I or me and say, who else has a similar audience, like the local brewery? Who else could offer value in the shop, like the local coffee that you're sourcing, and create mutually beneficial relationships? And not with any malicious intent, but just really trying to raise each other up and make the community a better place and to support other small business owners. And I think for some people that comes naturally, but for others it takes a little bit of effort to kind of get outside of your comfort zone and meet the people who are also entrepreneurs in your community and to always see where you can add value to their business. And usually what happens is that the law of reciprocity means that they then want to support you. And in turn, the community becomes a much richer place because of it. So I think it's really neat that you've reflected back that partnerships were a really critical piece of that early stage of marketing and not necessarily just being on social media, scrolling, posting, and just being on the content creation hamster wheel, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Something interesting that I don't know if I read it on the blog or in a newsletter or somewhere, but you said something along the lines of buying a bike is a big deal. It's a ticket to freedom, a tool to spread joy. It opens the doors to incredible experiences, both close to home and in far-flung reaches. And what I think is interesting about reading through that is that I almost felt like I could replace the word bike with entrepreneurship. Like starting a business is a big deal. It's a ticket to freedom in some ways. It's a way to spread joy. It opens the door to incredible experiences, both close to home and far flung, right? And I just think it's so interesting that, as we're talking about bikes and the way that they make us feel free when we're on them, there's so many parallels too with entrepreneurship and like, every corner that you turn, you don't necessarily know what's going to be there. You can't always perfectly pre-plan the route. You feel free, but also there's that like hesitation and fear of like, am I able to climb this hill? And will I be able to survive the tougher times when I'm out of fuel and out of water? And so I'm curious to hear your perspective on that. Do you see a lot of parallels with your riding journey and how you see your biking alongside entrepreneurship, or am I crazy to draw that parallel?
Absolutely. I think it lines itself so well, and yeah. So remembering why I'm doing this, it's at the end of the day, it's because I really do love, I'm passionate about bikes.
Yeah.
More than just like bikes, but the physical or the feeling of going on a bike ride.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of want to spread it. And it really, I mean, mountain biking is tough, right? Like you're grueling. It's sometimes you're in Costa Rica and it's super hot, or you're here in Canada and it's freezing cold. You're trying to go fat biking and it's storming. But building that resilience is super helpful, and that is not unlike business too. Like there's certainly been there have been lots of challenges along the way. But having the attitude of like, hey, let's figure this out. This is just like another hill to climb. Let's go through this, and after that, I'll be a sweet downhill. So there are so many bike puns we can use.
Good
Uh,
analogy. Yeah.
for sure, biking has been
Mhm.
it's just something I love to get into, and the fact that it's something that we get to sell here is, and or at least provide fixed bikes, and it's something that is also very it brings a lot of meaning and purpose to know that we're providing a tool that I feel spreads joy
Mhm.
and ensures that or spreads the feeling of flow,
Mhm.
which we
When
all can do
you're
a little bit more.
Totally. When you're having one of those tough days, like we all have unexpected challenges that hit us in the face, or, you can never really predict what next week brings when you're running a business. But if you're having one of those tough days, is there any tool or strategy or rituals that you use to get yourself out of that? Because I feel like there's only so long we can wallow before we realize I'm the only one that can fix this. Like I'm the CEO of the business.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're having those challenging days? Because I'm sure someone listening is experiencing that right now and is looking for some advice or just to feel less alone.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to say that I go for a bike ride, and that certainly
Yeah.
has helped in moments, but I have not always been able to do that. Um, I think it's just a matter of remembering why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Say it's a tough conversation you have to have with a staff member or perhaps a
Yeah.
customer. Um, Remembering that you're dealing with human beings here, and that at the end of the day, we're a human-centric business, that we deal with human beings.
Yep.
Um, is super helpful, and trying to figure out what the solution is, how we can help them, is sort of at the core of our business. Um, I like to focus on stories too. So I've
Mm.
heard the great thing about having a coffee shop too. It's like that barbershop effect. People come to you, and you hear all sorts of great and sometimes challenging stories too of folks. It's kind of a revolving door, and I one of the aspects I love the most about running the shop is that um, whoever walks in the shop, we make them feel welcome, and there's this like great atmosphere of, we got bike movies on and great music on, and the smell of coffee always helps. But yeah, over the years, I've really forged some amazing friendships and relationships with customers and our staff. So sometimes just hearing that someone's going through a rough time, it's like, what can we do to at least we're here for them, and they have a home here that they can walk into, and that's been really confirming as far as our business idea is that we're more than just that bike shop. It's really that community hub feeling that I wanted to create from the very start.
Mhm.
And that's sort of why I mean, going back to my very first bike shop or bike buying experience, when I first made that decision of like, okay, this is the sport I really want. I'm ready to invest in something beyond the Canadian Tire bike.
Yep.
Um, I went to, I'm not going to bash anyone, but I did go to a bike shop. I was 14, 15 at the time,
Yep.
and it just wasn't the best. I knew exactly which bike I wanted to buy, and it felt like this major letdown of
Mhm.
it felt like I was buying a magazine, and I remember that feeling, and that was something I brought into this business is how do we turn that feeling, or how do we turn the moment of buying a bike into something that is a big deal, that can
Yeah.
be celebrated. And that's probably, we're talking about marketing too. Like that's the best marketing is word of mouth.
Yep.
So if we can help create a really special moment for folks, which is why we also take Polaroids. I'm not sure. I think you've been to the space.
I
We
have.
take
Yeah.
Polaroids of everyone who decides to buy a bike, and
Yep.
so they become a part of the space. They become a part of the building,
Yep.
and whenever they walk in the shop, they can see themselves
Mhm.
holding a bike in that moment of like, this is amazing. I got my bike. I'm gonna go shred.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful. And I love too, as a marketing strategy, like social proof, right? Like having people on the wall with their bike. I think that's really cool and clever. And yeah, like you've said it a few times in this conversation that you always remember why you're doing this, right? It's not just about selling bikes to people and like, you know, getting another sale through the cash register. It's literally about changing lives, right? Both you and I, I'm sure, have our own origin stories about how biking has changed our lives for the better and made it richer. And now you get to provide that same experience for others. And it's funny, as you were talking about your story of buying your first non-Canadian Tire bike, I was picturing myself. I think I was around 20 years old, 20 some years old, and I walked into like this crazy, like intimidating road cycling store in Toronto to buy the bike. And they just looked at me like I was an alien. And I was there to spend a lot of money for my first bike because bikes are not cheap. And every time I went in there, I just felt like I didn't belong. I wasn't elite enough to be inside of this store. And like you said, like there's no word of mouth marketing from me happening when I have an experience like that. But if I have an experience that's the complete opposite, where I feel welcomed, accepted, like there's no stupid question about the bike that I'm about to buy, I'm going to go tell everybody about that. I'm going to post about it on my social media. And so it's like two polar opposite experiences, but such a good reminder that exceptional customer service and just being remarkable is a marketing strategy, right? Having a great product, a great service is a marketing strategy. And of course, there's so much more that we can do, but I love that you've actually taken that customer service, customer centric approach and just woven it through the entire business model, knowing that like if we can have happy customers for the first few years, hopefully the flywheel of marketing starts to take care of itself and that word spreads without us having to do traditional advertising.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy concept, but
Yeah.
taking care of folks is a pretty
Yeah.
amazing marketing strategy for sure.
It shouldn't be a crazy concept, but sometimes it is. And you're like, wait, how is this shop still alive when they won't even look me in the eye?
Yeah.
Uh, Well, as we start to wrap up here, Nate, I'm curious, has anything pleasantly surprised you about the entrepreneurial journey? Obviously, you haven't been starting businesses your whole life. This is kind of your first foray into it all, running your own shop. So, has anything surprised you for the better?
I would say, yeah, it's been an incredible journey. It's been so much fun. Like we have a ton of fun with the staff here, and I would have, had I known, like it certainly was helpful that I worked for Sacred Rides for 8 years because I really got to see what running a business, a small business, was like. Uh, and I learned from Mike, the founder of the business, sort of what to do and what to avoid doing as well. And it was a great, valuable lesson. But it also sort of put the brakes on wanting to jump in right away and start my own thing. So, which ultimately was super helpful. Um, I certainly had crazy ideas before starting the shop too that I'm glad I didn't pursue. But now that I'm in it, I'm like, there's no way I'd ever go back.
Yeah.
It is a lifestyle business too. I'm at least at this point, I don't have any crazy ambitions to expand. And I think I was listening to your 1-800 got junk
Yeah.
interview, which is it's amazing. And it's I'm just not at the stage in my life with two young kids to really start even imagining what that could look like. But it's also a great lifestyle business. I get to really be present with my kids, and they get to see me do something that lights me up, which I think hopefully is something that is a valuable lesson for them, that they can go out and pursue something that really lights them up in the world. And yeah, I kind of wish that I would have jumped in sooner, but it also does feel like I jumped in at the right time in my life,
Hmm.
um, with a bit of with a bit more experience
Yeah.
and some marketing chops too, I guess you could say. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if that answered most of your question,
It
but
does. And I think, the important piece of what you just shared is that you have to know what season you're in. I've been having this conversation a lot too, and I know a lot of my audience is in that season of like, I don't know that I want growth at all costs right now. And like you see other people, yeah, growing like their $1 million empires and more, more, more. But also, I think there's this other side of the conversation that's becoming important of like, when is it important to just know what enough is and what season am I in? Like, do I only want to work a couple days a week and spend the rest of the time with my family? Or do I not want to be traveling on an airplane 10 weeks to go do talks? Like, and so I think it's just such a vital conversation for all business owners and everyone to have of like, am I in the season where I'm trying to grow this thing? Or am I happy? And obviously continue to dream big, but also just check yourself. Like, is this dream worth pursuing now, or should I put it on the back burner for later? And so Yeah, I think it's really cool to hear you say that and the fact that, you've landed on a lifestyle business that is also still changing the world and changing the community one bike at a time. So, I mean, if people are in Ontario and they want to come visit you in Arkle, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you online? Leave us with all of the different spots where we can stay in touch.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Kelsey. Well, if you are in the Guelph area, please come visit us. We're in the South End, little town called Arkle, 5 minutes away from Guelph. And we are at Flow State Bike Co. on Instagram and Facebook. We have a bi-weekly newsletter that we send out. So feel free to join there. We'd love to meet you in person. That would be the best. If you can swing by, come grab a coffee, come grab a beer, just have a chat. We are all about that, and possibly come join us for a bike ride. That'd be even better. Um, I think that's sort of more or less where you can find us.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll plug all of that in the show notes so that people can come find you and cannot wait for the warmer weather to arrive so that we can get out and ride the trails in your area, come sit on the patio. I've had the luxury of visiting you a couple times with both my local group and then with a group of female mountain bikers from all over Ontario. And each time I've been in the shop, I've been completely blown away, not only with the atmosphere and the experience, but also just the curation of products that you have and just the proximity to such amazing trails. So, for anyone listening who's looking for a little day adventure, definitely check out Flow State, and we wish you all of the best. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks so much, Kelsey. Really appreciate it.